Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh. We are from G class. We'll explain about the third topic, the challenges and problems of economic growth. Before that, I will introduce my friends. Me as a first explanator, my name is Satria Bagus Pamungkas and my student number is 20210127. After this, there is Heni Novitasari with student number 2020510-134. Then there is Maharani with student number 200510070. And finally is Ramdan Rahman Fauzi with student number 200510510-075. First thing first, I will explain about what is challenges and problem of economic growth. In this discussion, we will explain challenges and problems that will be faced in economic growth. A challenge is something that, according to its nature or character, function as a call to make a special effort, a request to explain, justify, or difficulty in an effort that stimulates the people involved in it. Then, what is the problem? The problem is a statement about the situation that is not as expected. In this session, I will immediately explain about what challenge to be faced from economic growth. The first point is global corporation. The private sector is becoming a significant player, indeed some might say the dominant player, in shaping the global economic and development agenda. Multinational corporations with operations that span the globe, and in some cases capacities and network that match those of government, have a particularly important role to play in helping to spread the opportunities and mitigating some of the risks of globalization. The second point is global governance stalemate. Today's global challenge: nuclear proliferation, the deadlock of global trade negotiations, the threat of pandemic flu, and the fight against global poverty cannot be solved by yesterday's international institution. To resolve the world's most pressing problems, which touch all corners of the globe, we must adapt our global governance approach to be more representative and thus more effective by encouraging and enabling the key affected countries to take an active role in generation solution. Third point is economic exclusion in the Middle East. The Middle East has before it what could be one of the greatest demographic gifts in modern history, a potential economic windfall arising from a young and economically and active workforce. Today, young people aged 15 to 24 years old account for 22% of the region's total population, the highest regional average worldwide, with the right mix of policies. This demographic opportunity could be tapped to spur economic growth and promote stability. Fourth point is conflict and poverty. In a world where boundaries and borders have blurred and where seemingly distant trinket metastasized into immediate problems, the fight against global poverty has become a fight for global security. American policymakers who traditionally have viewed security threats as involving bullets and bombs are increasingly focused on the link between poverty and conflict. The Pentagon's 2006 Quadrennial Defense Review focused on fighting the long war, declaring that the U.S. military has a humanitarian role in alleviating suffering. And the fifth point is rise of new powers. The rise of emerging powers, a group that usually includes the so-called BRICS or Brazil, Russia, India, and China, but which sometimes is applied more broadly to include South Africa, Mexico, and others, is reshaping the global economy and, more gradually, international politics. Growing much faster than the rest of the world, these economics are changing the structure of international production and trade, the nature and direction of capital flows, and the pattern of natural resource consumption. At the same time, the growth of these countries is beginning to shift the global distribution of power, forcing the great powers to come to terms with the reality that they will need to share management of international rules and systems in the coming decades. And last point from me is energy and environmental security. Energy and environmental security has emerged as the primary issues on the global agenda for 2007. Consensus has recently been forged on the potential for long-term economic, national security, and social damage from insecure energy supplies and environmental catastrophe, as well as intense need from technological advance that can provide low polluting and secure energy source. Yet despite growing global momentum, there is still little agreement on the best set of action required to reduce global dependency on fossil fuels and greenhouse gas emissions. Confounding the international policy challenge is the disproportionate impact of high oil price and global warming across nations, insulating some countries from immediate concern while forcing others to press for more rapid change. That's all from me. Further explanation will explain by Heni Novitasari Siregal. Thank you.
So, for the next challenge of economic growth are global poverty and global health crisis. For global poverty itself is more urgent than ever. Over half the world's population, nearly 3 billion people, lives on less than $2 per day. Nearly 30,000 children die each day, about 11 million per year. With such a tool, addressing poverty in new and more effective ways must be a priority for the global policy agenda. Fortunately, a variety of new actors are bringing new perspectives, new approaches, and new energy to the challenge. For global health itself, responding to the threat of pandemic flew to the efforts to control the spread of HIV or AIDS. Till now, we are in pandemic COVID-19, the world has begun to realize that global health issues are relevant for any citizens, regardless of nationality, residence, or status. In particular, the poor continue to suffer disproportionately from inadequate health services, exacerbating their struggle out of poverty. So for the next, I will explain about problem of economic growth. Every country that carries out economic development activities is certainly faced with various problems, both developed and developing countries. There is not single country that doesn't experience problem when carrying out economic development. However, the problems of economic development faced by developed and developing countries are certainly different, but in general, there are several problems. The first is low productivity. The low level of productivity can be seen from the gross domestic product or GDP per capita or GDP per capita of small workers. The second is growth dependency and vulnerable international relations. The economic condition of developing countries tends to be influenced by the economic condition of the surrounding countries, especially developed countries. The third is imperfect markets and information. Emerging markets tend not to provide complete information. The market structure of goods and services generally tends to be imperfect. In fact, monopolies and oligopoly can happen in the production factor market. The fourth is high unemployment rate. It is undeniable that the unemployment rate in developing countries is indeed very high. This unemployment rate will be higher if calculated using the under-unemployment rate. One of the reasons for the high unemployment rate is the very high rate of labor force growth exceeding the capita of the national economy.
Low-level life. Low-level life can be seen from the ability of the population in the terms of fulfilling basic needs, such as food, clothing, and home. The report issued by UNDP states that of the world's more than 1 billion people below for the poverty line, nearly 18% are from developing countries. The poverty referred to by UNDP is malnutrition and poor health conditions. In addition, low levels of education lead to large number of people in developing who are illiterate. High population growth. In developing countries with large populations tend not to be linked by equality in the distribution of population. The population is focused only on a certain area, while other areas are precisely undernumbered. The uneven distribution of the population is clearly hampering the process of economic development. The impact of the problem is the occurrence of uneven land revenue sharing. Dependence on the primary agricultural sector. Developing countries generally tend to depend on the agricultural and mining sectors. In fact, there are countries that only depend on the agricultural sector. This condition is commonly referred to as a monoculture economy. Land. The land is any natural resource that needs or used in the production of a good service. Land can also include any resource that comes from the land such as oil, gas, and other commodities such as copper and silver. Typically, includes any natural resource that uses raw materials in the production process. Entrepreneurship. Entrepreneurship is the fourth factor and includes the visionaries and innovators behind the entire production process. The entrepreneurs combines all the other factors of production to conceptualize, create, and produce the products or service. Capital. Capital refers to capital goods such as manufacturing plants, machinery, tools, or any equipment used in production process. Capital might refer to a fleet or trucks or forklifts as well as heavy machinery. That's all from me.
Labor. Labor consists of the people that are responsible for the production of a food, including factory worker, manager, salespeople, and the engineer that designed the machinery used in production. Economic growth factor. Previously, we have discussed about challenge and problem of economic growth. So this time we will discuss what the factor of economic growth. 1. Human resource. Human resource, or commonly abbreviated as HR, is an indicator of economic development in a nation. The HR factor is able to accelerate and even slow down the process of economic growth. An example is when a country has an increasing number of employed for this population. Then that country is considered to be experiencing a setback. This led in the quality of human research gave rise to an increase in the number of employed, which was the exacerbated by the decreasing number of jobs. The increase in the number of employed is able to trigger a high poverty rate in the country. Later, this will affect public demand for goods and services from economy. Generally, people will save more of their income and will only shop to meet their basic needs. 2. Natural resources. As we already know that our country is a country rich in natural resources. Even so, the natural resource that we have is not accompanied by the quality of improving human resources that are good in managing it. As a result, our country frequently exports raw goods and reinforces them with finished goods at high prices. The constant of limitation in managing natural resources obliges a company engaged in the management of raw goods to often import raw material from abroad, thus making the company product more expensive than when they have to obtain them from abroad. This condition is often a dilemma in Indonesia. There are still many domestic products that turn out to be more expensive, thus decreasing demand. 3. Advance in science and technology. A country will be considered advanced in terms of the economy if it experiences an increase in the use of science and technology. This same applies to companies that prioritize technology to deliver goods or services more efficiently. The use of advanced technology means that the company can produce products that are faster and more efficient. For example, technology in that of production equipment, if used efficiently, will have reduced labor observations so that the labor budget can be cut and used for other purposes. However, the application of this technology is of course still rare or difficult for developing companies because the high-tech tools are generally free, expensive, and must be imported from abroad. 4. Inflation rate. One of the symptoms that can have an impact on economic growth is inflation. Inflation is a condition of uncontrolled currency circulation. An increase in price has impact on the productivity of raw material because it increases the company operating cost in terms of supplying raw material. In addition, inflation will also have an impact on employee salaries. At least there are two types of inflation that can have a direct impact on a company business, namely cost-plus inflation and demand-pull inflation. Cost-plus inflation is an increase in product price due to an increase in demand, while demand-pull inflation is an increase in public demand which causes the price of goods and services to rise. 5. Interest rate. The interest rate in country is also able to influence its economic growth. This growth tends to increase interest rates due to an increased income in society. High interest rates will have a bad effect on a company which is usually used for loan capital in improving the quality of the company. In addition, the occurrence of high interest rate will also reduce investment, and this will constantly have a negative impact on companies' share. Why? This is because investors generally prefer conditional saving rather than investing their money in the company. Well, it's all about our presentation group. If there's a mistake, we apologize for it. We hope this presentation useful for all of us. Thank you so much. Assalamualaikum warahmatullahi wabarakatuh.